We are live on Facebook as well. If anybody's tuning in from there, it's great. Feel free to just chime in on the chat too, where you're from, uh, what club you're with. Would love to get any questions people have on their mind into that chat as well. We can collect those and get to them at the end of the webinar today.
We'll just give it a minute here as people are coming in. We got a lot of clubs joining today, so we got lots of different areas. It's like all over the world.
Montana, Florida, Illinois, Cali, and North Carolina.
Montana, Houston, Grand Rapids. Portugal's a ways out.
That is. Welcome from Portugal.
I'm all the way in St. Louis Park, Minnesota, so that's exciting.
I'm about 10 minutes from that in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. So
Some friends on here, some people from Colorado.
go Avalanche. Yeah. Oh, Carolyn. Yes. Carolyn's been on with us before. She's a long-time TeamGenius user. Awesome. We'll give it about 30 more seconds and then we can get started here.
Sounds good.
People are pretty busy this time of year. We have exciting times coming up in the volleyball world. Different state, national tournaments, a lot of tournaments this time of year. So let's see. Brianna, how are things with you guys? How was your big event last week?
Hey everyone. Hey, it was great. We had an awesome time in Chicago for our first Align volleyball summit, and we had about 180 people there, and it was super efficient, and I feel like everybody got like their batteries re-energized for next season and got a lot of really good ideas. And I personally am super excited to have you guys host this time of year with everybody in their minds on tryouts and how to manage all these numbers for all the kids pouring into their systems. So yeah, thanks for doing this today.
Yeah, I appreciate you joining. I mean, just really nice to have somebody else on to chime in on that. We'll have a couple people chime in throughout the webinar as well. If you'd like to say something throughout the webinar, feel free to. I think there's a way to request to talk, and so we'll keep an eye on that. But looks like we have a really good showing today, so excited to dive in. With that being said, we can get started. Skelly, you want to start us off?
Yeah, thanks for joining today, everybody, for our webinar. I'm Gabe from TeamGenius, and we've got our other Gabe here from TeamGenius as well. As you mentioned, these are going to be live streamed on Facebook, and then we'll send the recording to everybody. Today's webinar, Tools and Tips for Tryout Success with JVA and TeamGenius, and clubs, like we said, from all over the world here. Today, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to start a live poll. So I think, Malinsky, do you want to start that? I don't know if we hit it already. We got a poll that we're gonna you can answer, I think, right here on your computer, or there's a QR code you can take to answer it as well. So, and that'll be running for a while here. So you can scan that with your phone, that QR code, and then it'll bring you right to those questions too. So, and it says hosts and panelists can't vote, so I guess we won't be influencing that at all today, which is perfect. So. Yeah, today I'm Gabe Skelly from TeamGenius here, and I was one of the first people to start working at TeamGenius, I don't know, 8 years ago. Worked with clubs from all over the world, and really from all over the world, all over North America, different parts of Europe. I've been into working with a lot of different sports through tryouts and in-season evaluations and ODP programs and provincial development programs. I live in St. Louis Park, Minnesota. I've been an athlete all my life, switching from football, wrestling, and track in high school to a thrower, D3 thrower in college. Did pretty well there through all the heavy things, and then transitioned into distance cycling for charity and now ultra marathon on trails. So doing a lot of those kind of things. I stay very active and my kids stay very active. And I just love youth sports. I love giving back to kids and community. And I think tryouts and evaluations and helping kids get better at the sports they love is super important. Seen in my life, seen in my kids' lives. And that's why I love doing this and just what we do here. So like I said, I got some experience, and there's the deeper reason is for my kids and other kids to do what we do and make it easier for the clubs too, so that you guys can do what you do and make it easier and more effective for parents and kids. So love being here, and I'll let Gabe Malinsky introduce himself.
Yeah, I'm Gabe Malinsky. I've been with the team for about 7 years now. I was the third employee and somehow the second Gabe on the team, a 5-person team at that point. So kind of funny. But either way, yeah, I've got a 2.5-year-old son, so not quite in that youth sports world from the parent perspective yet, but I did grow up playing hockey and football here in Minnesota. And then obviously with Team Genius, have gotten really more involved in the soccer and volleyball world. So excited to dive in on kind of what we've learned about tryouts over the last several years. We work with 800 plus clubs, really helping with tryouts and in-season evaluations, so we can kind of shine a light on both of those topics here today. So as you can see here, yeah, we'll go through some of the most common criteria. We'll have Will from Empowered Volleyball Academy chiming in on some of his tryout tips that he's learned over his years in the volleyball world. And then we'll go through our tryout prep checklist and take a peek into Team Genius too. I know there were some requests to do that when we had asked the what questions people had during registration. So we'll certainly get into that as well, just to show a quick preview of Team Genius and what we can do to streamline the tryout process. This was Skelly and myself at the volleyball convention a couple years ago. You'll see some of our new branding here. You can see kind of a peek there on my shirt, but yeah, we do attend that volleyball convention each year, hoping to get to more events in the coming years. Especially, it sounds like that JVA aligned event was great recently, and so love to get to that next year. And as you can see here, I mean, we've scored over 60,000 volleyball athletes since 2019 in our app. So really helped to save, I think, a lot of time for coaches. We've certainly got a lot of data on the evaluation process, and happy to share some of that with you all today.
Yeah, if you guys are going to be at the volleyball convention or the coaches conventions coming up this year, make sure to look out for us. We usually host runs too. Me and Malinsky will do like 5-mile runs in the mornings, and then we had one of our partners last year come and we had force plate testing, so you could see how much force and how much vertical power you can put out when you're jumping. So kind of neat stuff. We like to make it fun. So first off, we've got Bree from JVA. That's the JVA offers club directors, club coaches, and junior volleyball educators tools they need to be successful. We're a partner of theirs. They've been a partner of ours for quite a while. It's just a great tool. If you're not a JVA member already, I would suggest signing up because they do great things. They've got great education. I look at their website and see a lot of the stuff they've got, and they do a lot of stuff for clubs. So just a great tool out there for clubs. So we're fortunate enough to have Bree on today to talk with us a little bit and just be a representative.
Yeah, Bree, do you want to say a few words just on what JVA does? I'm sure most people are familiar, but anything you want to chime in and say there would be great. Looks like you might be on mute. I'm not sure if you're saying something here. And maybe we lost Brianna too. No worries if that's the case. We can skip ahead and come back to that too. So yeah, let's go ahead and proceed. Skelly, do you know if Will was able to join?
Yeah, it looked like he was on there. I was gonna see if you could bring him on the presenter side.
Yeah, let's get him in. There you are, Will. Yeah, so Will from Howard, we should have him in as a panelist now. So Will, yeah, welcome. Thanks for joining today. I've got a little excerpt about you here, but yeah, what would you say are some of your tryout experiences? You want to give yourself or give an introduction to yourself and kind of your volleyball experience?
Yeah. Yeah, volleyball director now, and we've now got 4 clubs underneath my bigger management company, a couple facilities. Gabe may know when we started with Team Genius. I feel like it was the very early years. I personally, just as I've finished my playing career overseas and then was traveling around playing beach, I really tried to, do a lot of research, talking to a lot of club directors across the country about best practices. And really, before I started my club, I just did a lot of research and tried to figure out how I could build the best club. And uh, yeah, I won't go into all the best practices, but we'll talk about the tryout side of it. And I feel like that's the biggest headache, is evaluating hundreds of kids and then being able to slot them in to several teams, where now we're up to about 60 teams with the 4 different clubs. It can get, with multiple sites, multiple clubs, like trying to evaluate all of these kids is really tough if you're old school, trying to do it pen and paper, and then trying to collect from all your coaches, trying to read their writing, pull their scores, average scores, try to do all that is really, just anybody who's been in this business very long knows what a headache it is. And so Team Genius came along years ago and really brought about a solution that all of us needed. So we jumped on board pretty early on, as we try to stay up on the latest kind of trends and good technology that could really make our job more efficient, but also help us grow a little quicker and be able to process more kids. So yeah, we switched over, and honestly, it's been phenomenal. And while I've been approached by a lot of other software companies that try to provide something similar, I feel like Team Genius has really just knocked it out of the park and has really thought of everything that you need for tryouts, evaluation, tracking their progress over the years and through multiple assessments. And so, yeah, we run through, like I said, about 600 kids each year. And really, we're able to get scores on every single kid, really do a proper assessment and evaluation of them, their skills, their off court, the physical assessments, height, reach, approach, touch. We even do a pro agility just so we can see the first step quickness and change in direction. And so we really go and evaluate everything. And then we go and make intelligent decisions with the placement of the athletes on the teams. And then the nicest thing with the families, and the biggest feedback we've got from families, is when we go to make the offers to put them on teams, we use the system, and they've got a whole email marketing piece that you can mass email a nice little form email, and it'll fill in their name, their team, all the pertinent information. But the most important is the actual performance assessment from tryouts will get attached, and families now, they value our tryouts on a whole nother level. And no one's complained about our tryout fees since we started with Team Genius, because they see the value and they get a 2-page printout of the evaluation and all their scores and each skill, but also how they rank with the 80 kids that may be in that age group. So it really gives them empirical data that they can hold on to and know why they made the team they did because of these numbers. And it really does take out the whole favoritism. It's all about, they only care about their high school kids, or they only care about certain demographics, and it's, politics, all of that. It takes those excuses out of it, because now you've been evaluated by 10, 20 coaches. All my coaches got iPads or their cell phones, and they're all entering their scores on their respective courts and evaluating their respective skills that they're doing. And, it really has taken our tryout process to another level of professionalism. And for us, it also just helps us to gather all that information and helps our decision making that much smoother and more efficient, because it'll average the scores in the back end, and it'll weight what you believe is important, if it's the more physical size or if it's the more skill base. It's, you can weight it, and it'll give you a Team Genius score for each kid, and we'll really rank them for you and really help you with the decision making. So yeah, it's been honestly a phenomenal partner and tool for us. Pretty early on, I want to say we've had our indoor clubs now 11 years, and I want to say we probably had Team Genius probably 6 or 7. So yeah, it's been a great partnership, and yeah, I'll answer any questions. Most of you guys know I'm also on the board for JVA, and I know Bree must have dropped off. JVA is all about education and trying to bring the best education and best events for coaches, players, and directors. And that's why I joined the JVA board and just really try to give back to the sport by partnering with good organizations like this, and then even volunteering to speak and sharing a little bit of our experience with Team Genius, because ultimately it's just a great tool. And I think honestly every club should be using this software to try to make the best tryout process the more fair process possible.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. Looks like Sam had a question as well. Sam, do you want to jump in here with that question? It might be for Will, I imagine.
I think everything's set where people can unmute themselves too. Like, I don't think we have anybody muted on purpose. So
Yeah, if you want to speak again, just ask. You can raise your hand and I'll admit you to be able to talk. It looks like Sam had raised his hand, but for right now, we'll move him back. Sam, if you do have a question, let us know. We'll lower that hand for now. Well, yeah, thanks a lot, Will, for that intro to yourself. I mean, really nice to hear your experience. What Team Genius has been so positive, and I mean, you've been working with Team Genius about as long as Skelly and I have. So that's awesome to see that you've been with us through a lot of our growth. Next, we're going to get to some of the most common scoring criteria we do see in the several hundred Team Genius accounts. So these are all volleyball specific, from most to least common. On the left side there, you can see obviously some of the most typical criteria that people are scoring players on at tryouts: serving, blocking, attacking, passing, setting. Defense is another big one. And then you do get into some of the more quantitative data points, things like height, standing reach, serve, receive. Some of the quantitative things also being towards the end there: block, jump, pro agility, 5, 10, 5. And then interestingly enough, some of our in-season evaluations are becoming so common that those criteria are also jumping up into the most common criteria we see. Things like attitude and communication, things that you might not see during a tryout, but you're going to see throughout the season. And that coach can then give feedback to the player on a criteria like leadership or like coachability. So yeah, really awesome to see that, because I think there's a ton of value in providing that feedback and also using some of those coach evaluations during the tryout process. If you're trying to decide between one or two players, that then, looking at that coach evaluation and saying this player is more coachable, let's put them on the top team because that player has maybe more potential to develop since they are open to that coachability factor. So don't feel like you need to screenshot this or write these down. We will send this slide deck out afterwards, as well as a recording. So we'll leave it at that. And next, Skelly's going to go through our tryout prep checklist that I think we'll also plan to send this out. So again, don't feel like you have to screenshot it, but just a really nice overview of how you can properly prepare for Team Genius or for tryouts.
I'll go through this too. I was also going to say to everybody, I did put it in the webinar chat, but I guess mine only goes to the panelists. But I was going to say, if you have questions, please type them in there as well as raising your hand. We'll make sure to get Will's contact information, as long as he's cool with that, out to everybody. Or if you wanted to, people can certainly put in their LinkedIn profiles in the chat to communicate back and forth that way, if you don't want to put in, your email, those kind of things. So going through this, the tryout prep list is something that we've worked on for a while with a lot of clubs, kind of just establishing kind of the best options for, running through evaluations. And we had a lot of input on this throughout the years. So I'll kind of go through this, and like I said, we'll send this out to you guys too. So 1 to 3 months out. Oh, and as we're going through here too, if you guys didn't already answer, when are you doing tryouts? Like, are you guys doing some spring tryouts? Do you have some summer evaluations for, parts of the organizations you're with? This is all in the fall. Interested in that too, because I know it changes, across North America for sure, based on different factors that roll in there. So let's just say 1 to 3 months out in advance, depending on your schedule, establish your tryout format, determine how and when you're going to be conducting your tryouts, how many days your tryouts are going to be, what you're going to do during those drills, scrimmages, what kind of things you're going to measure with your players. And that goes into identifying your evaluation criteria. So how is each skill going to be evaluated? Establish your ranking system. It's going to be a 0 to 5, 0 to 10. and how those rankings are going to be used to determine your players' overall scores. So how do you guys, decide if a player is going to be a 3.5? How do they rank, and how do you place them on what team, or how, if they're all 5s across the board, if that's the top, how are they going to be ranked on those teams? So decide those things up front so that there's no confusion when you get close to your actual evaluation days and once you're looking at the data when it comes back. Reserve your fields, courts, facilities, depending on your organization's process. So you may have your own, you might need to reserve some. I know some areas of the countries, it's very expensive to reserve, time and courts and facilities. I've heard of places where $500 to $1,000 an hour in really dense parts of the countries. And some places have their own facilities, so it's not as big of a deal, but make sure you reserve those and the people know where they're going to go and when. Prepare and send out communications to parents. So important part of the tryout process is going to be communicating your tryout schedules, expectations, clear communications up front about fees and cutoff dates and those kind of things so that people aren't confused at all. And open your player registration. So give players several weeks to register for tryouts, and select a time and or date if more than one tryout session is being held. So if you're going to have your main tryouts, and if you're going to have a makeup session, or if different ages of players need to come show up at different parts or different times for your tryouts, let them know that easily. 3 to 6 weeks in advance, so coming up closer. Obtain any equipment you need, so make sure you've got cones, whistles, bib numbers, all the specific things you might need, clipboards, pens, pencils, iPads, and phones. I would also add in there, maybe if you guys are going to use technology like force plates, or you're going to use any kind of gate measuring tools, or things just for jumps or serves, those kind of things, have all that set. Recruit evaluators. So reach out to your potential candidates who are going to be qualified to evaluate players on your specific criteria. So it might be coaches within your own club, it might be people that you have that travel if it's a more kind of governing body to evaluate players, and make sure that those people know they're going to be doing it and they're committed to do your evaluations. Next up, recruiting volunteers. So a lot of organizations we work with are volunteer run for the most part. So recruiting whoever's going to work and help throughout your process. Might be parents, might be your different boards, and then make sure that they're set to go. I always make sure that with the volunteers that they're thanked all the way through. So if you're going to have training, which is one of the next things coming up here, is make sure that feed volunteers, make sure they're happy, listen to their feedback. There's a lot of times they're the core of how we get these things done, how we're able to run tryouts and make them effective. More volunteers make light work for everybody. Coming up the week of tryouts, so kind of stress building as it gets close. Train your evaluators, ensure all the evaluators know how players are being evaluated, what scoring methods being used, if they're using existing evaluation software, that they know how to use it. And all of your evaluators will need to have basic training in any apps or technology they're going to need to use. We work with people to do that all the time, making sure that everybody's set for tryouts. So assigning volunteers to specific tasks. So making sure that you have enough volunteers assigned to each area and each task. That can be a tricky one some of the time, knowing that sometimes volunteers aren't going to show up because they are volunteering, but making sure that you've got everything covered and that you've got enough people. Generally, I don't see a problem with too many volunteers. So always make sure you got lots of volunteers and that they're happy. Set up your evaluation software or scoring sheet. So customize your evaluation forms and or software to include specific skills players will be evaluated on, what scoring scales, ranking systems evaluators are using. Finalize your player registration. So prepare a final list of players for tryout session after registration deadline passes. Ensure all necessary information is provided prior to tryouts. So we have some organizations that keep tryouts, all the way up to the day where you can have walk-up players. I know our system lets that happen pretty easily, where you can register players, on site the day of, and they're in the system. It's up to you guys. Some clubs will do that where they accept, paper or checks or the registration tools right up to the day. Some people cut it off a day or two in advance so they know exactly what they're expecting with players coming in. But however you do that, make sure you finalize your player registration. Day of tryouts, so set up athlete registration and checkup areas. So I don't know, I'd back up one step. I'd say drink a lot of coffee. For me, it would be at least a pot. And then go to the site, set up your athlete registration and check-in areas. Set up tables, chairs, bibs, athlete numbers, and check-in lists. Make sure the process goes faster. Assign several volunteers to check-in. Check-in, I've gotten helped with a lot of tryouts, and check-in can always be an area where it sets kind of the tone for your tryouts, right? So you don't want to have parents and players lined up for an hour and a half just trying to get through the check-in process. It's good to have it flow quickly and have lots of volunteers there. Set up your volunteer and evaluation areas. Set up a spot for evaluators and volunteers to place their personal items during the evaluation and provide snacks and beverages to keep them happy and engaged throughout the event. I would, add to that too is, maybe even schedule meals or delivered food, or have volunteers that their job is to bring food and snacks for volunteers, and they know when they can take breaks. Just makes everything flow better, having the volunteers be happier and less tired. Finalize and hand out athlete lists. So make sure your evaluators are in their correct spots to evaluate each specific skill. So if it's going to be a court where they're doing a specific drill or skill, make sure they know where they're going and they have the right tools to do that during that day. Address volunteers with final instructions. Make sure each volunteer is confident in what they need to do and that they're in their place before tryouts begin. And then address parents and players. So one of the best things I've seen happen at a lot of tryouts I've been is if you have a parent meeting. So parents are there. Maybe it's a closed tryouts where they don't get to come in and see things, but before get everybody huddled up before they go into the closed kind of tryout areas, if it is a closed tryout, and just talk to the parents of how long the tryout's going to run, what the process is going to look like. How soon. Parents always want to know how soon they're going to know if their player made it onto that team. So let them know what that's going to look like, and just set those informational instructions there in person. And then maybe have some questions too. But if you cover it well, I've seen these happen where there's just not a lot of questions. You can cover in 5 minutes of talking to the parents. You can safeguard so you're not going to have tons and tons of emails with questions or miscommunications. Post tryouts. So compile scores and ranking your players. If you're using a software, it'll be done automatically, immediately. If you're using paper, you got to collect your sheets and enter data into a spreadsheet to aggregate scores and determine your player rankings. Assign players to teams. If you're drafting or forming competitive teams, it's important to assign players to appropriate teams quickly. Share scoring data with coaches and board members to ensure proper team placement and decisions are reached. Communicate results to athletes and players and parents. Determine how players who are cut, if any, will be informed, and what information from evaluators will be shared. So this could be, just the basic communication. It could be something where right at tryouts, before the day's over, you post up a sheet of who made what teams. Could be sending an email with an offer and where they click to pay for the next step in your process. If you're using TeamGenius, for example, and somebody didn't make a top team, you could one-off show them how the stack ranking was within their, within their specific pool, and why a kid didn't make that team. Respond to parents' questions related to team assignments and player performance. So that goes into is like how you're going to respond to that, what data you're going to show, what's going to happen if parents are happy or aren't happy with how a player is placed, and then ask for feedback from evaluators, volunteers, athletes, and parents. That feedback can be important just to see, gauge how people are feeling. Make sure you want kids and parents to keep working with your club and just see how the whole interaction and process was. So that's a lot of stuff. We can certainly, talk more in depth on any of those points, but we will send this out to you guys, and certainly, let us know any questions you have or feedback on this and how it fits into your current trial process.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, looking at that poll that we did send out, looks like about 63% of voters are doing tryouts in July. So we're sort of at that 1 to 3 months in advance phase. So hopefully, if you do have those July tryouts, you have started this process. And if not, now is probably a good time to take a look at these things and make sure that you're getting on track for those tryouts. Everybody else might have a little bit more time, but we do have some people running tryouts in June too. So yeah. Let's head back to slideshow here. And so next we'll get into a TeamGenius demo. I know we did have some requests for this when people were registering. So we'll try to make this as quick as possible. I know we do have some TeamGenius users on here who are already familiar. So this is the back end of TeamGenius that we'll be showing. If you do want to look at the mobile app is what your evaluators would use at tryouts or what your coaches would use for in-season or end-of-season evaluations. And so you can actually log into the mobile app just by using the sample access key VBALL, VBALL, and that will bring you into a sample assessment so that you're able to score some sample players and just see what the experience would be like for your evaluators. Most evaluators love it. It takes them maybe 2-3 minutes to get used to the system. We do have training videos. You can send to them ahead of time as well. And so it's not all on you to train your 10, 20, 30 evaluators. We do help with that. But this, again, is the back end of the system. So this is what you as an admin or a director would be setting up to actually sort of set up and prepare your coaches to have an evaluation to score in on the mobile app. So this is, you can see that access key that the coaches use would be specific to your organization. And then everything within the system works top left down. So everything from customizing the criteria that you want to score the players on, whether those be subjective criteria or quantitative criteria, you can do scales of 1 to 5, 1 to 10, 1 to 3. Tony, that access key is VBALL, VBALL, if you want to test that out for yourself. Also, one thing to mention on this page is you can weight those criteria differently. I know Alan had asked a question earlier about those stats, those kind of player metrics, not maybe equating to the best volleyball players. Like just because you're tall doesn't mean that you should be on the best team, right? Or just because you have the best vertical jump doesn't mean that you're the best player on the team. And so that's actually why we allow you to edit those scoring weights so that player stats maybe don't weight into that final score at all. So instead of having to get some Excel guru who puts an algorithm into an Excel spreadsheet for you to calculate all those things, you can actually just, click and change that value within TeamGenius, and that changes over for you. Looks like we had a question, where do you put the demo code into the app? So in the mobile app, it'll ask you for your name, your email, and the access key. So just put in your name, email, and then the access key, VBALL. If you want to do that on the computer, you can go to eval.teamgenius.com. That's eval.teamgenius.com. And then you can also do the same thing and see the website of an evaluation experience. If we go to this evaluation schedule, you can also decide how many days of tryouts you have. You can have 10, you can have 1. It's totally up to you. And those days can consist of different player pools, basically the age groups, or it can consist of every age group and maybe just like, some specific skills. Like if they're just going to go through those metric testing, the player stats, height, weight, vertical jump, whatever it might be, on day 1, you can take that out of day 2, day 3, day 4, since it's irrelevant on those days. Player pools are the age groups, and you can group your players into what we call eval groups as well. So if you want to put the kids into smaller subgroups because you have 100 kids going through tryouts and you want a coach to only see the kids that are on court 1, you can form them into eval groups so the coaches only see that group that's right in front of them at that point in time. You can have different user permissions. So if you have somebody who is a parent that's running check-in that you don't want to see the scores, you can give them player check-in only access. That way they don't see scores for their player or somebody else. You can easily hide player names, and then you can run check-in with the system. So this is, I think, one of the huge time savers for people, is instead of having a mess of sheets of paper and clipboards at your check-in table, and then you run into a printer after people check in to try to copy a bunch of sheets with numbers on them and player information, you actually can just run that directly on the TeamGenius system. You can easily search a player name when they show up. You click, and then you can assign that player number and hit save. If you have walk-up players as well, sometimes that's a pain. The players that didn't register and they only show up at the check-in desk, they say their name, all of a sudden they're not on your check-in sheet. What do? Instead of running around and telling each coach, so-and-so just showed up, they're wearing jersey number 72, you can just click add player, capture their information, put in a player number, hit save. That player automatically then gets sent to your evaluator's phone or tablets so that they see them, they don't forget about them, they then get a score and are in your TeamGenius system to be put on a team afterwards. We do have some integration partners. I think I heard that we have League Apps on. League Apps is one of our close partners. We also work with TeamSnap and Sports Engine. Essentially, if you use them for registration, you're able to directly integrate your players, directly import your players from there into TeamGenius. We'll next jump to this results page. We'll skip over the evaluation portion because, again, you can use the access key VBALL in the mobile app to test it out for yourself. Once you get done with tryouts, those scores automatically get input onto your results page. You can see here how each player did in the U10 age group on day 1. Looks like Alex did the best. Click day 2. Looks like Peyton was our best U10 player. Day 3, it was Alex again. And then you click on the TeamGenius score. That's those 3 scores combined into a scale of 0 to 100, comparing all those players against each other. And then, as you can see here, you're able to put them on a team, which you can then email out with our emailing system in bulk. So you don't have to call each player or send one email at a time in Gmail. You can actually just select one team or one age group to send out those results, and players only see their own result. They don't see anybody else's result. It looks like a one-to-one email. We use placeholder tokens. So it says, hey, first name, thanks for coming to tryouts. You made this team. Click here to accept the offer or respond within 24 hours. However that works for you, you're able to do that within our emailing system. And then you can see here, you can find comments on the player. In our pro plan, we do offer video capturing capabilities. So you can capture a video of a player going through a drill. I know some directors will even sit at home and then score the players as they watch videos that their coaches, that their evaluators captured at the tryout. And so you have that option. And then, of course, you can dig further into the data if you'd like to. So if you want to go in and see who scored each player on blocking, who was your best blocker, maybe you want to have Kai on the A team because you need somebody who is good in front. Maybe you need somebody who's really good with their movements. And then if you click here, you can see which coaches added scores on that player. And so if you do have questions on, hey, why did Logan only get a 2 on serve receive? Click there and you can see which coach you should ask about that. And then, of course, you can also see which evaluators scored the players here. So if you want to just see Cody's scores, great. Click on Cody, you'll just see his scores. And let's say Cody's a volleyball expert, Gabe's more of a hockey guy. Let's take his scores out, and then we can hit save, and that will just take Gabe's scores out completely, or we can adjust those to be just worth less. Maybe Cody's been coaching volleyball for 20 years. Let's bump Cody's scores to be worth 38% of the overall TeamGenius score. And you hit save, and that would then reflect on this TeamGenius score here. If you ever want to export the data, you can. And if you need to show any other data on here, let's say carpool requests, jersey size, team they played on last year, club they played for last year, you can add those on the far right side and then filter by that column if you'd like to. I think that kind of sums up the system. I know we've mentioned in-season evaluations a couple times. I will quickly show what that report looks like. So if you did send a report to players end of season, then they would get something like this. They would have their scores. If you go to this beginning of season evaluation, you can see there's notes from the coach. You have the option to show them. Again, this is optional. I know some people do not like to do this. You can show them how they ranked compared to their teammates, and then also what the average that their teammates got was, because this player got a 4, but every player looks like got almost a 4 anyways. So maybe that player should know that they're doing well, but not that much better than everybody else. And so you can also capture videos in here. If you did have quantitative metrics, those would of course show within here, and just super nice. You can toggle between beginning of season, mid-season, end of season. That way they can look to see if they are progressing, and the parent can really see that there is value for them playing with your club. So I try to keep that as quick as possible. If there's questions on that, or you do want a one-on-one demo with us, you can always reach out to us and we'll talk specifically about your scenario. We do have a free trial as well you can sign up for on our website, teamgenius.com. And that is good. You can evaluate up to 20 players for 2 weeks. So kind of nice to be able to test that out. Sometimes it's great to do that end of season, see if you like it. Then you can dive into tryouts if you like what you saw during the end of season evaluation process. All right, so this is the mobile app, kind of just a quick preview of what that looks like. We went through all this stuff. It's customizable, so you choose what criteria you want to evaluate on, how many sessions the players go through. The app is available on iOS and Android, as well as desktop. So if you do have somebody who wants to use a computer on the court, they could do that. Maybe they're sitting in the bleachers and they have good, Wi-Fi connection. That's certainly a possibility. It's a bigger screen to use. There is an offline mode as well in the mobile app. So if you don't have good signal in the facility, that's not an excuse. It's still works great. The app switches into an offline mode. It saves the data on the device, and then it will sync that data directly to the cloud after it reconnects to the internet once you walk out of the facility. I mentioned the video and image capture. So if you do want to capture profile pictures for a player, you can do that. Typically, that's done at the check-in desk. It is very coach friendly. Coaches, like I said earlier, usually take about 2 minutes to warm up to it, get used to the system, and then once they're in and feeling good about it. And then last time I'll mention it, if you do want to test it out for yourself, use that V-Ball access key or sign up for our free trial, which again is good for 2 weeks. And you can score up to 20 players on that. No limitations within that free trial. This tends to save evaluators and directors up to 40 hours, if not more than that. I think we're being a bit conservative, but it depends on how many players you're scoring, of course. But the average that we've seen is around 40 hours, especially if you do use systems like League Apps, Team Snap, Sports Engine. Sometimes it's a really big time saver to actually be able to bring in your players automatically. Let's say with our League Apps integration, you're able to set up an API key that automatically syncs a player as soon as they register in League Apps to your TeamGenius account. And then since, as you know, we have JVA on here, we do have a member discount for JVA members. I've mentioned the Pro plan a couple times. The Pro plan gets you up to 4 meetings with an account manager throughout the year, so you're not going through the setup process on your own. It also comes with that video functionality, some advanced attendance tracking features, and then just some overall advanced support options. And if you are a JVA member, you do get $2 off of that $9 per player Pro plan. So I think a really nice just member benefit for any JVA members. And then we do have a JVA tryout template available within our system. So you can get set up just like that by selecting the JVA template and then adding your players in. You'd be good to go after that. And then, of course, with any subscription that you do have, you can run unlimited evaluations on your player count. We just tier it based off of how many players you think you're going to evaluate. We round up to the nearest 25, multiply that by $7 or $9 per player. For JVA members, that's $7 per player. And then you're able to evaluate that amount of athletes as many times as you want to throughout the year. No extra cost to do in-season evaluations or end-of-season evaluations. That's all included. And then, of course, as I mentioned, you do get the one-on-one training session and year-round support. That's something we really pride ourselves in, is supporting people and talking about tryouts just like this. You could have a one-on-one conversation with Skelly and I about your tryout process and how you might be able to improve it, make it more efficient or more effective. Looking at the poll results, I know I mentioned this earlier. It looks like we have a majority of people running tryouts in July, 62% of people, in fact. August is the second most common month that we do have people running tryouts in. And then third would be August. And then we do have a pickup in tryout activity in November. It's like about 23% of people on the webinar today are running tryouts in November. I want to say that's probably our friends to the north in Canada. Could be wrong on that, but I think that's typically when they're starting to run their tryout processes. Some other quick takeaways from the poll. Looks like a majority of people on the webinar today are evaluating between 150 and 500 players. It's a pretty wide range, so that's not super surprising. But we do have a few north of that and a few south of that as well. Let's see, most difficult part of the tryout process. So I think this is where we could really try to provide some value here too, and maybe we'll have you chime in on this too. Looks like planning tryouts isn't super difficult for most people. 12% of people, respondents, did say that planning tryouts was the most difficult part. Finding volunteers, this is very interesting to me. Only 1 of 50 people said that finding volunteers is the most difficult part of their tryout process. If you asked a hockey director what the most difficult part of their process is, that might be it. It's really difficult for some other sports organizations to find those volunteers who are willing to come and help out with the tryout process. So I think that's saying a really good thing about volleyball people in general. They're willing to help. And maybe you do have the committed staff, the committed volunteers and parents who are willing to jump in and help where they can. So that's really fun to see. Player check-in, not a huge concern to anybody. The most difficult part, it seems from everybody, 42% of people responded that the most difficult part of their tryout process is forming teams and sending offers. And I think that's not a huge surprise. So anything that Skelly, Will, Brianna, anybody else have any thoughts? How do you make that easier? How do you simplify or sort of streamline your ability to form teams and send offers to players?
I think anybody on the call can jump on too if they've got ideas on that. I know we have a feature in our system that we created years ago so that you could pull up an offer letter and print it off on site in case you're worried that players are going to try out with you, and if they don't make the top team, go to the next club that's a mile down the road. I don't know if there's as much of that happening today. Maybe there still is, but that's one of those things that I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, this is Brianna JVA. I know a lot of clubs, they're doing all these tryout preps and evaluating kids as much as possible before the actual tryout date. So I think naturally, like having a system where you can continue to evaluate them through, TeamGenius's software, I think could be really valuable that day of when you have all these kids already in there and you're not having to like scramble and you've got all that data.
Yeah, I think having the data is really step one, right? If you have that data ready as soon as tryouts are done, that's going to allow you more time to actually focus on forming teams, analyzing the data, and then ultimately sending that offer. I know some clubs that I work with actually will look at the data as tryouts are happening and ideally get an offer to that player before they even leave that day, or by the time they get into the parking lot, have an email with an offer letter in their inbox. I know that's not always allowed in every region, but there are some people who are doing that where it is allowed.
And I think somebody mentioned earlier too, if you only have 2 hours with your tryout, sometimes, you got to prioritize what you're focusing on. And so sometimes trying to do all the evaluations and get numbers on athletes can seem overwhelming. But what we typically do is have separate evaluators, and then we have our directors or the head coach of our top teams that are actually really working on slotting kids in. And really, the numbers come in when you get into the 3, 4, sometimes 5 level kids, and those kids, the gap is a lot smaller. So it's nice to be able to see score wise who passes a little better, who hits a little better. We can see what we really need with that team. And even sometimes you got to look at potential. We look at height, we look at approach touch to see, all right, if it comes down to these 2 kids, who do we think has more potential so we can actually compare 2 kids even in this system, which is nice. So from a tryout process, I feel like it really helps the efficiencies down towards the 3, 4, and 5 level teams, because most of us know by the end of tryout, probably even the first 10 minutes of tryouts, who our number 1 teams are. Those kind of separate themselves pretty easy, and sometimes even the number 2 team kid. But if you're doing multiple teams at a level, you really do need these numbers to reflect back on. It's nice to have the picture so you can remember, oh yeah, that's that 13-year-old. I remember her now. And it helps you to slot some of those kids in. based on empirical data and not trying to remember back at the end of tryouts a couple days later. Because I think everybody does tryouts the same. You start at the top. As those teams slot in, you move to the next team, and then it might take you a week or a few days to get to that second, third, fourth team. And a lot of times you forget a lot of the athletes or specific differences. So yeah, I feel like that's where Team Genius really helps us with so many teams, is really making sure we're still slotting those kids in intelligently onto teams, where I feel like I've seen other clubs growing up over the years that just, you get to that level, they just start slotting kids in, and there's not a lot of effort and thought put into those teams. But ultimately, those kids are paying, and those kids are just as valuable as your top kids. Uh, so yeah, I would encourage that, um, you know, utilize it really on those age groups, and that's where you'll see the biggest benefit. And definitely use some extra staff that can just do scores and get numbers on everybody, while your lead coaches and directors are the ones actually slotting kids in on those top couple teams that you need to put offers out that night a lot of times quickly.
Yeah, that's great. And I think if I'm looking at the poll here again, one of the other, actually the number two most difficult part of uh, voters' tryouts process is compiling scores. I would really urge you, if you're still using paper and typing in scores to an Excel spreadsheet, look at an evaluation tool. It saves you every second that you typically spend on compiling data. Um, and a lot of times when you're compiling thousands or hundreds, if not thousands of scores after a tryout at 11 p.m., like there might be some errors that you have in there, and that could impact what team a player makes. And that's important to not just that player, but to your club too. And so yeah, I would really urge you to look at an evaluation tool of some sort if you are really struggling or just not looking forward to the compiling scores portion of your tryout. Uh, the third most common struggle with tryout processes was managing drills and scrimmages, which I think is something I probably can't chime in on too much. Will, Brianna, Skelly, any ways that you've made tryouts easier, managing drills and scrimmages and kind of the logistics of the tryout day?
Yeah, I could chime in a little bit. Just what we do is really, we have two facilitators on each court that are running the drill. Then we typically have two evaluators that are actually on the iPads or on their phones getting scores. And then we have an actual lead that is rotating them. So we found, trying to have one person trying to lead and rotate drills and facilitate the drills, and you just do too much, then you get behind, you lose track of time. So if you can get more volunteers, or if you have a big enough tryout, you can have more paid staff to be able to kind of separate out that way. I feel like that's probably the best way to be successful. So you have just some high school kids, maybe some college kids who are back that are just chipping balls, just tossing balls, just doing the facilitating of the drill. Then you have a director or a lead coach that is, telling them what to do, when to switch, and they also might be the same person who's also evaluating as well on the court. And I think that helps you to just stay on task. And we do have a clock too, that we have, time we throw up there, 10 minutes, so everybody can look over on the wall and see the clock counting down and know we only got 2 minutes left in this drill. So I do think even having a clock, whether it's a nice digital clock that connects to your phone and you can adjust the time, or just having a clock on the wall that you can just kind of gauge time off of, just to be able to stay organized and on point. That goes a long way.
Yeah, I think that's got to be super helpful for some people, because I can imagine there's just so many moving parts to your tryout process, and you're so focused on the back end stuff, and it's easy to forget about the actual on court, getting the players to show their skills. Because the last thing you want is a skilled player who is not able to showcase their abilities. So yeah, that's great. if we keep moving on this poll quick so we can get to some questions, one of the questions was, how do you currently run tryouts? Looks like 71% of people that voted are still using paper, pencil, and Excel spreadsheets. So again, I would urge you to look at an evaluation tool. I think it makes things easier, even just outside of the data compilation after the tryout. And then the last question that we did ask was, do you run in-season evaluations? 77% of people said no to that. That's also something that we would recommend. I think there's a ton of benefits that we could all chime in on. But really, if the players pay to go have a fun time and also in a lot of cases develop as a volleyball athlete. And so they want to be getting the feedback from your coaches. They chose your club or your association to play with. And so they do want to get some of that feedback. And so that's an easy way to really show some value, help them know what they can develop on. And if you do have off-season camps or clinics, it's a great way to show them, hey, you do need to work on these these three things. And put a link in that email with the feedback report, sign up for our camps and clinics here. And then that's an easy way to promote those camps, clinics, get higher attendance there, and then help that player develop even outside of the regular season.
I was gonna say, I was working with a club a while ago for, it was like an in-season evaluation, and the director I was talking to is saying, we have some tracking in the tool that sends out the evaluation reports, and he was saying that we were looking into the details, and this particular kid's report was opened 100 times, and he was wondering what was going on. And it sounds like the report was shown to his grandparents and some of his friends and his parents and stuff, and the kid had printed it out and put up on his wall and as things to like keep working on. So those can be really important. Just like, kids if you get an awesome report card or you're on the A honor roll, they might put it up. Same kind of thing. It's kind of cool working with your clubs. If you have, that custom branded report with the kid's picture, they might just put it up on their wall. It goes a long way.
Yeah, that's great. So those were all of the poll questions. I know that we had quite a few questions throughout the conversation here today. So I want to jump back to Anna. Anna asked, due to so many multi-sport athletes, our club has a winter team and spring teams. Is there any option in the evaluations where you can see if the kid is doing both seasons or just one? Yes, we would call that a custom field. You're able to import that from your registration system, or you could add that directly in TeamGenius, and then you can show that on the results page or on the check-in page, wherever you want to see that. You can do that if you import it as a custom field, or if you want to capture that at the check-in desk or something, you can always do that too. Another question, does this integrate with Sports Engine? Yes, it does. We have a lot of people who use other systems as well that just easily import with a CSV file. So if you don't use Sports Engine, TeamSnap, League Apps, don't panic. You can still use TeamGenius. It's just a bit easier with those systems. Let's see. Do we work with Sprockets? We do not. Demo code. There's a lot of questions about the demo code. VBall, VBALL. Can you rank by position? Yes, you can. If you import position from your registration system, then you can show that on the results page, filter by their position, and then form teams while looking at their position specifically. I know that's oftentimes done at the older age groups where you really need a specialized player in each position. That is absolutely something you can do within the system. The demo does take you through the complete end user experience for the player receiving emails. You get all the data within the results page. The only limit is that 2 weeks and the player limit of 20 players. Let's see, we do not integrate directly with Data Volley 4. Price range, I mentioned this earlier, $7 per player is the price for our Essentials plan, or the price for our JVA members on the Pro plan. The regular Pro plan, if you're not a JVA member, is $9 per player. And then we do have an elite tier for mainly governing bodies and some advanced organizations. That's $15 per player. How do you handle clubs with multiple locations and states? Not an issue for us at all. There's different routes you can go Sean, I would say if you do have questions on that, reach out to us directly, and we can take you through a demo, show you what that would look like, because you can access all of those regions within one account if you have like a governing body that wants to see several of the regions or have access to each account. You can do that, or you can go a separate route and have everybody just manage their own account. Or we even do have some people that they put everything within one account. They just have different assessments. So you have region 1 assessments, tryouts, and then region 2, which is a separate assessment. So you can manage that in a few different ways. Was there a way to categorize the rankings on the data per position? Yes, you can. We talked about that. How do you take verticals quickly? That's a good question, Carolyn. Will, do you guys capture verticals?
Yeah, we do the vertec. We have to do 2 lines. That would be probably where a lot of people get bottlenecked, is with the approach touch. We used to have, you did 3 misses. Now you get 3 attempts. That's it. Whatever your highest touch is, that's what it is, and we move on. So yeah, we've had to use 2 lines. And then what I would say is just making sure you got your staff, everybody's in place when kids start showing up for tryouts, so they can just flow through and, you know, check in, get their number, get their shirt, move down, they do a picture, then they do height, then reach, then approach touch, and it just flows as long as you have everybody in place. It's when, oh shoot, we don't have anybody take pictures, oh, we don't have anybody here at this, and it gets backed up, and then now you get 12 kids, 15 kids standing in line. But yeah, the physical assessment, you know, it could take a little bit if you don't do it strategically. And I definitely would with approach touch. There's no quick, easy way. We've tried it with vert, and trying to do it that way with some technology. But it seems to take just as long, because then you got to do the math and what their vertical was and their approach touch, and because colleges want to know their approach touch. They don't really care, is that a 25-inch vertical, a 30-inch vertical. They just want to know, kind of a gauge where they're touching. So yeah, and anybody can reach out to me. It's Will at Empowered Sports Club. As most of you guys that I've met over the years know, I'm an open book. And I'm here to kind of just be a resource, whether it's facility, whether it's indoor, beach, club, you know, facility management, anything we can do to help, just kind of share what we do and what we've learned. And if anybody's got a better way, I'm always open for a better way. And to me, yeah, there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors. So I love working with all of these groups to just share like-minded ideas and, yeah, best practices, and see how we can all get better and take care of our kids. So yeah, reach out anytime.
That's great. Yeah, I know a few more questions we can get through here. I know we're a little bit over time, but we'll take a couple extra minutes to finish these questions up. Alan mentioned it'd be great to get some suggestions for specific individual or team drills that help with evaluations and avoiding players standing around for too long. So kind of what we just went over. Hopefully that was helpful for you, Alan. But Brianna mentioned she will put together a resource on that, and maybe we can get that attached or sent out to all the attendees as well. JVA discount. If you are interested in getting started with TeamGenius with a JVA discount, just reach out to us and tell us that you are a JVA member, and we will absolutely get you a custom checkout link to check out with the JVA discount. And I think that's it. Any other questions anybody had? Feel free to raise your hand here, or Skelly, Will, Brianna, anything last minute to say before we jump off here?
I'd just say, if you're not going to use TeamGenius, I would just recommend doing some type of evaluation software, as you grow, just to, yeah, keep you organized, help you to make the best decisions based on the data and the information, and then also give your family some real empirical data to hold on to after the tryout, as to why they made the team they did, but also what they need to work on and kind of where their weaknesses are. So yeah, definitely use something. But yeah, we've used a lot over the years, and TeamGenius still is the best. So we definitely recommend you guys. Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate that. And it looks like one last question came in from Raul. Raul asked, does anyone do a separate tryout for high number positions like liberos, DS or OHs, which are always high numbers? That's a great question. Will, any thoughts there?
We haven't, but we always do put on that, we can always do a callback, and we always have like second date and you call kids back, whether it's position, whether it's a age group that we just need to see these kids again. But I honestly I like that idea. Especially with DS liberos, you do tend to have 1,000 of them at some of these age groups. So yeah, maybe doing a separate positional tryout is definitely something worth looking into.
Awesome. And yeah, Brianna mentioned that Austin Junior Volleyball does. So if you want to email Brianna, then she can connect you directly with Mike Garcia. Let's see here. Looks like last question here, and then we'll jump off for the day. Our club is having an issue with having kids and their parents make commitment after they verbally accept the offer. Any solutions?
I think she's referring to people making verbal commitments and then maybe backing out. We had to implement several years ago. People just have to pay a deposit. And even then, it seems like it doesn't matter what the deposit is. If somebody wants to leave and get sold a dream, to go somewhere else, they'll eat the money and leave. But at least, you got $300-400 out of it, because it obviously takes a lot of time and it's a big headache if a kid bails. And now you got to try to shift kids up. So yeah, I think making a deposit when you accept your spot is got to be the norm now, instead of verbal commitments, because yeah, unfortunately the days of a handshake and people having their word, it's kind of faded. You got to have everything in writing nowadays. um, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, difficult reality of today's world. But yeah, that's great insight. And Will, thanks so much for chiming in on all these questions. You were a huge resource, I think, for all of us. And as you mentioned, everyone, feel free to reach out to him on any questions that you have for him. Same thing goes for Skelly and myself. I think Will's got the more maybe specific knowledge on the volleyball world. Skelly and I are great on the tryout and in-season evaluations aspect. Same goes for all the whole team at Team Genius. And so feel free to stay in touch, reach out to us with anything that you can think of last minute here, and we'll plan to host another webinar probably in the fall, if not sooner. So keep an eye out for that. We do run an annual webinar on in-season evaluations. And as Skelly mentioned earlier, if you do attend the AVCA convention, let us know, and we'd love to meet you in person there.
We'll go for a run or something.
Yeah, tough part is it's in December, so it's a little cold for some people's likings, but we still get out there. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining. Really, really appreciate it. Everybody have a great week, and we'll hopefully talk to you all very soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care, guys.